Welcome back to Case Closed, Anime Review Episode 135. Yes, this is discussing the 1023rd episode of the series, The Whistling Bookstore 3. And for the first time in 2 months, the news chapter of the manga. Yep. Alright, now, this episode is another one of these anime original episodes. Like, okay, fine. But I do like this one. This one is actually quite interesting. Yes. Now, the last time they had the Whistling Bookstore was actually 2 years ago. Yep. Yeah, this is actually by far the only anime original episode that actually gets 2 sequels. Yes. Yes, they have brought back characters from anime original episodes in a complete unrelated title of an episode, which is always great. I like the fact they do. We start off with Detective Boys, and at least the writer of this episode bothers to remember Anita is part of this group. And a lot of the time, lately I've seen, anytime that the Detective Boys show up in the series, Anita is nowhere to be seen. There's no mention of her at all. And I'm like, really? Really? Yes. I don't know if the writers have been forgetting about her, but I just kind of wish they would remember more often. Because it seems like either they intentionally forget or just basically it slips their mind. Because she is part of the series, why not include her? This episode does not really feature the bookstore itself per se, which is currently a cafe. It has been a cafe, I believe, since the last time. So we start off basically with this mystery. We have Mystico investigating this pudding thief, who turns out to be Genta. Because of course it is. It was an okay story, and of course you have mentioning about Ami and Genta's one. Genta is all about eels because he loves eating eels. His story is not that interesting at all. And in the case of Ami's, hers is kind of interesting about shrinking. People who shrink become friends with dolls. I'm like, is that a nod to something else? Well, that could also be a nod to an actual story that the writer wrote, where there was this prototype story for Case Closed, where this character named George, who is a guy who is a private investigator, like Maury, except he shrunk down, and his secretary looks like Ran. He has who looks like his daughter. And here's the thing. There's original Conan in this story. I remember watching this story last year, I think it was. It's an absolute great story. I don't know if this is a nod to that, but kudos for the writers basically having a nod to an actual story that the writer of the series came up with. So, and then basically this is taught by a teacher who turns out to be, according to one of the characters of the episode, Memiko, I think her name is. It is... Yeah, Minako. Yes, she was invited. She invited the kids to this particular, writing class. Okay, perfectly fine. So, everything's all hunky-dory. Until the owner of the place comes in. Yes, who is actually the writer's sponsor. Amaroa, who is the writer in this episode. He's a writer who wrote 3 books. We have Ronja, who is a book collector, and his maid. Yeah, these characters, I highlight that I'll pop up again. See if I can get back here. Yeah, so, after class, apparently the kids are not liking... He does like the stories they writes, because they think that they're basically, he actually throws on the stories that Genta and Ami wrote. So he's like, okay, kids, come with me. We're going to the basement. And you're thinking, oh crap, is he going to beat the crap out of these kids? Or do something inappropriate? No, he isn't. He takes the kid to his basement to read books. I'm like, wow, the vibe is so creepy when he did this. So he unlocks this hidden library, which has these very expensive books that range from 1,000,000 to 6,000,000 yen. Yes, so he tells the kids, don't leave until you finish reading books. I'm like, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I read books all the freaking time. Heck, I read light novels. Like, I'm reading this soon. Yep, so no problem with me. So, after they pretty much give their books, and of course, when Micho, when he tries to grab a book, and according to Renja, is like, oh, don't grab it that way. Like, don't grab the book. That's worth 6,000,000 yen. And according to, I think it's like they read books, and then of course they all have lunch because, well, Genta's hungry. So they eat, and then Michio collapses. Yeah, she falls on the floor, and you're like, what the heck happened here? Turns out she was actually someone trying to poison her. I'm like, wow, that's something. Yeah, poison tends to be a bit of a common trope for this series. Like, it's a common murder device. But here's something interesting, though, about Case Closed. How many times has any character been shot and killed in this series? The answer? Like 2 or 3 at best. Like, whenever they have murders, a lot of the times either poison, stabbing, or whacking people in the head. But shooting? Nope. Like, their characters get shot in the series, yes, but not exactly like shot and killed. Yeah, so found she was poisoned. And they take a book that has got poison on it. Of course, Conan identifies as Paris Green. I personally don't know what it is. So they decide, okay, why don't we contact a book expert we know and him verify it? And it just happens to be the owner of the bookstore. Yunjiro. Great to see this guy again. Of course, he's seeing, well, American Hospital. And he does confirm what Conan said. This is Paris Green, a very dangerous book. Of course, the owner had no idea this was actually his collection. But you think that, is this the, oh, it must have been an accident. Nope. And then Conan knows something interesting, though. There is a bookshelf that's got a scratch on it. I mean, I'm talking like a little scratch. Like an actual cut in the wood. And he looks at the book that is there, and it's a book written in German. And he also discovers there's blood in the book. Yes, there is blood. So then Conan basically puts 2 and 2 together that Meniko, someone tried to kill her. It wasn't like, let's say, oh, an accident. No, someone seriously tried to murder her. Well, and then of course Conan, we see that the owner gets his book from Oroho, from the writer, Omura. Yeah, he gets the book from him. Oh, book him, he gets cut, and he's about to, like typical people do, they lick the blood. I don't do that at all. I think it's absolutely disgusting. So God says, don't do that, otherwise you end up like Minako. It turns out that, of course, Conan shakes the book. There's a blade in the book that is laced with poison. Yes. And Conan points out, though, that the book that how do you pronounce her name? Michiko, that she got cut with, was in fact a book that was poisoned. And of course, yours like, "What, you trying to kill both of us?" And Conan points out, though, that she was not the target. You were, sir. He's like, what? Why? Why am I the target for? What did I do? And of course, Urhelma is the one revealed who actually did. And the reason that he did this, because despite the fact the guy has been supporting him, turns out that he actually treated him like a slave, and also there was mentioned in the episode that he called him a thief. Yeah, the reason why he did that was because the guy stole some of his books and sold them because he was broke. Yes. That's pretty much what he did. And then I think now Takagi is like the only detective in the episode. And of course the guy apparently is off screen. And then we see, oh yeah, by the way, Michiko, yeah, they revealed she was actually writing a book when she was before being poisoned. And then she wrote a book in the hospital. And it's a book called, like, they show the book later on, like, oh, it's like, it's present. And of course, Conan thinks, isn't that first edition of Sherlock Holmes? No, it's her book called Falling in Love with Love. And everybody disappointed in the fact that it's her book, not one of the other books that's there. Yep. An okay ending to a pretty good episode. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. This actually was quite nice. Bit change of pace for a lot of the time when Detective Boys show up, and it tends to be one of the worst episodes of the series. Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed though lately. Whenever they show up, tends to be not the. I have nothing against Detective Boys. No, not really. I have nothing against these characters at all. They're an absolute great characters. It's just that it seems as though that a lot of the time, whenever they show up in the series, it tends to be not that good of an episode. I mean, the last that officially showed up was another Anime Original episode, which Anita was not here. I'm like, seriously, that was freaking stupid. Yes, at least the writers of this episode bothered to remember her this time. Yeah, for some reason, Hybra, oh, so was Anita, they forget she was part of the group. And finally, they put in a damn episode. I'm like, seriously, what is your problem, writers of the show? Yeah, that's something kind of weird, though. I mean, she was just featured just a few episodes back, which is great. But my big problem is that a lot of the time, whenever Detective Boys show up in the series, they forget to include her. At least the writer of this episode bothered to remember her. Let me check. I think it may have been the same person with the last two. Excuse me. Let's see. No, yes. Yes, he actually wrote the last two times. Which you're like, okay. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. At least this writer bothers to remember her being there. Yeah, whenever Detective Boys show up, yeah, at least they bother to remember to include her whenever they have Detective Boys show up, because after all, he wrote the last two times. So, the writer's name is Yuki Nizuka. Which, yeah, the guy, I'm actually older than him by a couple of years. He writes pretty good episodes. I mean, the last episode he wrote was episode 969, episodes like 960... 970 episodes that came out a couple years ago. Which, yeah, the guy is basically, this guy writes very good anime original episodes. Oh yes, well, yeah, he tends to write pretty good ones. I think this was his first one he wrote in a couple years. Yeah, it had been, actually no, he did write one last year. This two-part, which is really good. Yes. And he's definitely a guy who they should give more work. Like, give more scripts to this guy. This guy wrote a good story. I hope they do give him again. Yep. Oh, and by the way, next week, no new episode. Nope. It's a repeat next week. But we are going to review a new chapter of the manga. Let's review this here. Now, yes, there's probably going to be a new chapter next week. I don't know how long this arc is going to last for. Last few arcs have been 3 chapters apiece. I'm hoping it's longer than 3 chapters. I think 3 chapters become ridiculous. Alright, chapter 1079. Called The Thing Left in the Notebook. Really good color image by the writer of the series. Yeah, it's a good color image. I like the fact that they colored it like the way Conan looks in the show. Mm-hmm. Chapter starts off with Detective Boys. They mentioned, oh yeah, that, well, Augustus and they come from the hospital. And then we see some guy being tripped over from an alley. Trying to join from Takagi because he's a serial robber. And the guy starts running at Hybra. Is like, oh no, is it Jim Element? No. And then all of a sudden, Sato shows up. Yes, Sato. Like, when was the last time we saw her in this series? Like, wow. It had been a while since her last appearance in the series. Though they spell her name a little differently here for some reason. Yeah, it's S. They put a U here for some reason. The people who translated this. Yeah. Now her last manga appearance prior to this one was back, actually just 10 chapters back. Yeah, so this is the first time in 10 chapters she's been seen. So she's here, and then of course she just throws the guy over and basically throws him over, like, and he just ties on. It's called her pincer attack. I'm not. It's basically almost like a judo throw. And then of course notes basically when he's arrested, like 11:04, and then he notarizes it, and he basically writes like, okay, and then oh wait, there is a note from Date. Who's Date, you might ask? Date was Takagi's previous partner before he partnered with Sato, who was his girlfriend, by the way. Yep. And there's a code behind. Yeah, code. And here's the thing. This actually was Date's notebook. And he's been using it. Apparently, Date's been dead at this point for like a year. Well, given the fact this series has a very sliding time scale, like, that's the thing when it comes to series. It feels as though like a year feels like 20 years in the series. So we have flashbacks to Date when he was alive before he passed away. And of course, Sato's like, Wataru. Yeah, Wataru is actually, I believe, his actual name. Because the name Takagi, I believe, is his, I think it's his familiar name. Wataru is actually his last name. Yeah. Though for some reason, when they actually translated the show into English, when they dubbed it, and I have no idea why the heck they did this, they changed his name to Henry Wilder. That's not his name. All because it's Japanese. Like everybody else gets their names changed in the English dub for case closed. But not Keba. Him along with Maguire were the only two who kind of kept their names. The Maguire, they actually changed his first name. Keba, they kept his name, no problem. So they're reminded about a code that he left in the book. It's about like a date and it's about like a dinner. So, and they figure out where this shop is, and it's a Parrot. Yes, the restaurant that's below the Moore Detective Agency. Oddly enough, there's no appearance in this chapter by Ran or Mori, so they go and get some lunch. And of course, Conan starts deciphering the code. And then Amuro shows up because, well, he works here. Yep. So, yeah, in case you're curious, though, like, how would we know something that Date would know? They went to police academy together. Yep, I did. And of course, there's a lot of chatting about the fact that Date died a year prior. And then Conan noticed something at the table. What's this duct tape? And it turns out it was a version of the Game Boy Advance called Game Man 7. Yeah, a thing that looks like a... It's a weird console. Yeah, pointing to Azuma, she basically says, oh yeah, some kid left there. And how about... like... yeah. Let's see if I can find it here. to coincide deciphering the code, where basically it's here the first line was this Sunday at midday, Pikachu parrot in a window, red bow tie. Yep. Yeah, apparently Sato has never met Amuro. Nope, never met before. Takagi has. I talk about the Gay Man 7, which I'm not sure why the heck. And then we talk about this kid who apparently came by like a week ago and did hand signs. Apparently he's from Canada. Singing for help. And relates to the code. And then, of course, like, oh, it's not from last year. It's from a week ago. Eh? Yeah. A very good chapter. I at least got handed to the writer of the series. Yeah, it's definitely a chapter I thoroughly enjoy. Yeah, I'm going to get this chapter a 9 out of 10. It definitely is a good start to this particular story arc. Oh, yeah, it's a good start. And I don't mind the fact when I do a puzzle one, which, yeah. This should be interesting. No murder this time, surprisingly, but this should be interesting. And I like the fact Takagi is going to get some... It looks like Takagi might get some character development here. Which, yeah, it seems as though, like, that's episode 828, he actually... They actually do something now. And here's the thing, prior to this one, his last appearance was fairly recently. He appears a lot in the manga, like a lot. Like in the just like in the anime he appears a lot too. It seems like he appears like in a lot of the episodes. Like prior to this one, I think his last appearance actually was in also 10 chapters back. Which the arc is going to be called Wataru's Date Notebook. Which, yeah. I'm going to give the chapter a 9 out of 10. Yep. So yeah, that's this particular review. And that's going to be pretty much it for this particular review. Stay tuned for my, well, I'm going to thought I was going to do a time to kind of record about. I think I'll do it tomorrow. Okay? Next video. Bye.